Hey folks, I am back and officially making noise into a microphone. Very frustrating technical issues. Spent about 6 minutes talking into an apparently dead mic, but this is Casey McLean. This is the Poor Sports Seattle podcast. I wanted to do this earlier in the weekend. Wanted to talk about the draft last week. Didn't get around to it. We have this cool event in Tacoma called Porch Fest, and it was pretty awesome. I got to hang out at my house, hear live music, which is now the only way I'm ever going to a concert again, by the way. And I could not take myself away from that to talk about the Major League Baseball draft. But the Mariners drafted Kade Anderson from the national champion LSU team, the best pitcher on that team, a team that's got a storied history of putting big league stars into the majors, including, by the way, several top end starting pitchers. And Kade Anderson is a guy who, well, we're going to talk about it, but I put out a ranking. I'm burping into the mic, folks. It's 9:00 at night. My family's asleep. We're talking MLB draft. I can burp into the mic. Nobody that's listening at this time of night should be offended by me burping into a microphone. I put out a list on Twitter of my top 5 prospects that I would want the Mariners to draft. Number 1, Ethan Holiday. Number 2, Iva Arquette. Both were available at the time. Kade Anderson was number 3. Jace LaViolette was number 4. And Seth Hernandez was number 5. I'm wary of high school pitchers. I will say this, though I had 2 guys ranked ahead of Anderson, both of whom were available when the Mariners drafted, the Mariners have maybe the best reputation in all of baseball for developing college starting pitchers into quality big leaguers. Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, oh my God, why am I'm blanking on Emerson Hancock he's a first round pick. I was doing a little bit of research on Emerson Hancock just to kind of, as I was going through, and he was the COVID year where there was only 5 Bryce Miller, god damn, that's the guy. Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, only Luis Castillo in that rotation is not a college starter that the Mariners drafted, and even Logan Evans, I believe, is a college starter. Was a college starter, and yeah, that's so. Though there were 2 guys that I thought maybe would have been more exciting to me, and especially Ethan Holiday would have been. That's the sexiest name in the draft, right? Ethan Holiday is the only guy who, on name recognition alone, has star power in this draft. It's not that he's going to end up being the best player. He's got the thing that they're saying about Kade Anderson that I appreciate is that he has the highest floor in the draft. That the worst you'll get out of Kade Anderson is better than the worst you'll get out of Ethan Holiday or any of the other players. And there was even some suggestion that's been shut down by the Mariners that Anderson could be fast-tracked and pitch in the bullpen this year. And the Mariners they could really use another left-handed reliever, another leverage arm from the left side. It's not going to happen. The Mariners said they're going to shut him down for the rest of the year, which is fine. I'm not mad about it at all. But this is the kind of player that Kade Anderson is, and he's going to compare, I would say, favorably, but it's because I was aware of the pick at the time, and I think the philosophy is good. If you'll recall, and I'm not saying he's going to have the same career path or that his repertoire is similar. This isn't a scouting-based opinion. This is a reputation and philosophy-based opinion. I think that Kade Anderson compares favorably, or the drafting of Kade Anderson compares favorably to the drafting of Danny Holtzen. And I remember very distinctly where I was when the Mariners drafted Danny Holtzen. I lived in a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 roommates in Kent, Washington. I wanted them to draft Francisco Lindor. They draft Danny Holtzen. Holtzen seemed very good. Seemed like he would be fast-tracked to the majors. Seemed like a guy who had I think if you go back and look at scouting reports, I'd suspect they say he has one of the highest floors in that draft. And then he turns out being a guy that's just barely spent time in the majors. With the Cubs as a reliever. Holton has probably less than 100 career innings. I think most of his innings are actually in the postseason, which that's got to be a strange. So Danny Holton has 6 career appearances in 2019 with the Cubs. Went 3 1/3 innings, struck out 5. I know we've gone over this on the podcast before, by the way. And then his postseason stats. Didn't he pitch in the playoffs? Maybe not. I thought he pitched in the playoffs. But yeah, so I mean, Holton's career turned out to be an extreme bust, but it was injury related. I will say it certainly sweetens the deal that Anderson was willing to sign for under slot. He signed for about $700,000 under slot, which means the Mariners can take some risks on guys later in the draft. And the risks later in the draft, Major League Baseball draft is very weird. The risks later in the draft are not really high upside versus high floor. The guys you're drafting from rounds 2 and 3 on are almost all high upside, low floor guys, large variance players. The risk is that you're going to draft that player, use a draft pick on that player. He will have committed to a college or is going to a college, is a college junior or sophomore, and he will not leave that college or break that commitment and will not come play for your franchise. That's the risk later on. And the way that you mitigate that risk is by giving those people extra money. We saw a couple years ago, the Mariners took a bunch of, like, I believe Ty Pete, and like I think that was the Johnny Farmello draft. They had like 3 of these guys that all 3 of them were guys you had to sign off of their, you had to pull them off of their scholarship. To take risks in the baseball draft is to be anti-education, I suppose. And we've already seen them doing that a little bit. I haven't checked all their draft picks from today yet, but so they drafted, and so because of that, by the way, you'll see guys who are like ranked much lower get drafted much higher, and especially what you'll see sometimes is senior signs or whatever. These are guys, seniors in college. They don't have any options besides going and playing in the pros. It's not they're guys who don't have a back door out of signing with the team that drafts them. And those guys typically get drafted in rounds 11 and on. Typically, when they get drafted earlier, it's usually a guy that the team likes, but they think they can sign to a below slot bonus. So there's all these weird economic factors going into the Major League Baseball draft, which make it, 1, very confusing. 2, frankly, like the only reason it hasn't been, I think, collectively bargained out, this insane process, is because players' associations are almost never concerned about incoming players. They're concerned about protecting players who already play in the league, not the guys who are going to come into the league. So when Kade Anderson signs for $700,000 below slot, and do we have any contract information? Do we have Ethan Holiday goes to the Rockies, which is it's certainly poetic. His dad was a top prospect there, and I think a borderline Hall of Famer. Matt Holliday's not in the Hall of Fame, is he? Let's see. I don't think Matt Holliday's in the Hall of Fame. 316 home runs, 299 batting average, 379 on base, 5. But it's all, so much of it is in Coors Field that it's like, who cares? I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Nor do I think that he's 44 wins. He's like on the verge. Anyway, one thing I will say about Anderson that is worrisome to me, though, for a guy who's probably going to make it to the pros next year, would be my guess. If things go well, I think he'll probably be in the pros next year. He's a Boras client, a Scott Boras client, which is concerning. Scott Boras that's like he's the nightmare agent. Rarely, if ever, has let his clients sign or has advised his clients to sign pre-arbitration extensions. In fact, Cal Raleigh was a Scott Boras client and fired him, and then signed his extension. Ethan Holiday was also a Boras client. I don't have contract information on Holiday yet. But I would say, like, would I want these guys are close enough to me, and this whole draft, the top of the draft, was close enough to me that I would say if one of these top 6-7 guys was willing to sign for way below slot, I would have been on board with that. That's a big deal. That means the Mariners will be able to sign guys down the road, and you'll see the Mariners have drafted guys who are. You'll see these guys drafted just like way below and above their rank. There's more variation, I think, than any other draft. The Major League Baseball draft has more variation than the NBA draft and the NFL draft, and it's because there's all these silly economic factors that are working into it, and you might get a chance at like 4 high school shortstops down the road if you eat shit on your second round. It's so strange. So that $700,000 is a big deal. And then the Mariners at 35, they draft Luke Stevenson, a catcher from North Carolina, left-handed hitting catcher who played 3 years. Let me first read the Fangraphs scouting report for Kade Anderson as much as we can take of it. Anderson is an eligible sophomore who threw 38 innings as a freshman but showed some exciting strikeout stuff. In 2025, he had a little velo bump, working 119 frames, and led the entire country in strikeouts with 180. Now he's a threat to go first in the draft. Anderson is a spindly 6'2" lefty who will show up for you with 4+ pitches, who will show you 4+ pitches. His fastball sits 92-94 with a vertical ride and plays up because of Anderson's loose arm action, hides it until the very last moment. It generated a whopping 35% miss rate in 2025. So that's what you got to know. Good fastball. He throws it high in the zone, which is in vogue, and a good strikeout pitch. 4+ pitches is exciting. When I was watching him, I think these are very irresponsible comps, but his fastball and the way he uses his fastball, and if you remember this guy, I'm going to say a guy's name, and I don't really think that he's got the same out pitch. So Anderson throws a fastball, slider, changeup, curveball. The way that he uses his fastball at the top of the zone reminds me a little bit of Barry Zito. But then his curve, he doesn't have the big, nasty lollipop curveball that Zito had. But I just, the highlights I've watched, the way he uses his four-seamer, which is not dominant velocity, but it plays up because it's high up in the zone. And apparently it's got the spin axis to make it seem like it's a rising fastball. And then a bunch of stuff that's off speed that he can throw low in the strike zone. I think the other Cole Hamels was another comparison I heard. I would wonder. Initially I thought about Mark Mulder, but I remember Mark Mulder throwing a lot of split finger fastballs. I did wonder if Johan Santana is an interesting. I think Johan Santana pitched several years in the Fangraphs era. I just want to see his pitch mix. I don't remember Santana having a splitter. He had a four-seamer, a two-seamer, a slider, and a changeup. Okay, so Santana might be a little bit better comp, although he's a little bit shorter than Anderson is. Anyways, the comps aren't really important. What I'd like to get into now is the Stevenson scouting report, because Fangraphs had him ranked as their 46th best prospect. I want to say MLB.com had him in the low 30s. He was like 2 spots ahead, better than his. The Mariners drafted him 2 spots after his ranking slot. This is the Fangraphs Luke Stevenson scouting report. Draft eligible sophomore who slashed 284, 420, 535 as a freshman, and then had a bit of a strikeout regression in 2025, 24% strikeout rate. Combo of power, 58% high hard hit rate, and patience. But a grooved swing leads to well below average contact. Can pull fastballs at the top of the zone, struggles with stuff down and away, really struggles to dip and spoil changeups. Flexible, low to the ground pitch framer, quiet at the catch point, and even gets mislocated pitches in time to make them look presentable. Blocking ball hands are great, lateral agility is not. Struggles to push from left to right. I'm reading this whole one because I think this is important. The stuff that I'm getting to at this point, I cut the Kade Anderson one short, even though he's the more exciting prospect. So struggles to push from left to right in his one-need stance, but great at picking balls in the dirt when they're in front of him. Raw arm strength is fair, but often takes entirely too long to get rid of the baseball, and often mishandles his exchange. Looked like a potential mid-first rounder entering 2025 and leaves junior year more in round 2. So the immediate thought that everyone I think had is this spells the end of Harry Ford. Harry Ford is a fringe defensive catcher. I don't think he has a bat that plays at a non-premium defensive position very well. And the only position he's even playing at this point, they tried him a little bit in the outfield last year, and the reports were that it went pretty badly. He's only playing catcher. The defense is fringe. The offense is fringe at every other position. He's not really a DH. He's not really a first baseman. He's not really a left fielder. He's not really a third baseman. So you're trying to find a square hole to plug, and you have... What's the saying? What's the idiom? A square peg in a round hole. He's a square peg in a lot of round holes. And Luke Stevenson is not. He is left-handed, which means less to the Mariners than other franchises because Stevenson would be, in theory, where everyone's mind is going, that he's going to immediately become Cal Raleigh's presumed backup, and Cal Raleigh is a switch-hitting catcher. But what that does mean is, if he is a guy who has massive platoon splits, you could start to creatively ease the workload of Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh's a great defensive catcher, but if he's going to keep catching 130, 140 games a year, he's not going to be for very long. And so, could you limp through another year with a bad backup catcher option? Maybe not Mitch Garver, and then in 2027, maybe Stevenson is your backup and can play 60 games at catcher against right-handed pitching. Leave Cal in the lineup at either first base or DH and find some ways to extend his career now that you've got him signed for a long time. I like that. Does that free up Harry Ford to be traded this season? Certainly. I don't know that that's like... I don't know that that's... I would... In fact, the other day when Mitch Garver took a ball off the throat, my first thought was like, you got to keep Harry Ford. There's not a competent backup that I'm aware of in the system. So you got to keep, especially, by the way, if the rest of the league views Harry Ford as a non-catcher or a guy whose bat really doesn't play, like if the league values him as low as I think Mariners fans view him, then you're probably not going to get that much for him. He's not going to be the centerpiece that maybe people would hope. Sure, some ranking lists have had him in their top 100, but does the league value him that way? If the average Mariners fan doesn't appreciate him, why would the league value him so high? It doesn't make much sense. So, Stevenson's exciting for a whole bunch of reasons, but I wouldn't be like... to me, it doesn't mean immediately get rid of Harry Ford because you have Stevenson coming through. And I want to look at the MLB draft, the MLB.com draft tracker is a little bit better for the purposes of what I want to look at, which is I'm gonna go so far as to share my screen. Let's get this, not to make you feel like you're in a Zoom meeting with me, but let's get this bad boy shared. gonna take the audio off in case something crazy plays, which I seem to end up doing on accident half the time anyway. Okay, so if you see this on your screen, this is the Mariners draft picks so far, and I stopped paying attention this year, I believe, or this, I should say today, I believe after Lucas Kelly in the 6th round. So you'll start to see, by the way, in these, I would say one thing to look at is the class. So the Mariners have a couple senior signs who I talked about that earlier. Guys who, you see this ranking column. At 122, they draft Mason Peters. He's unranked by MLB.com. And at 152, they draft Corbin Dickerson. Well, Corbin Dickerson is a junior in college. There might not be a ton of interest in him. And also, teams might be worried that they can't break him off of that the 4th year in college. The exciting guy, though, that's in this category, the guy that I think is really the above slot guy to keep an eye on, is Nick Becker. And we're gonna read both the. Actually, let's see if we can find Nick Becker on the. I pulled up Nick Becker on the. I got some lights flashing. We might be running out of juice on one of these lights. That's okay. I pulled this up so that you can read what MLB.com has to say, but I like the interface at MLB.com better, but I trust the scouting reports at. I'm going to just turn this light off so I don't feel like I'm. There we go. Okay. Now it feels sexy. Now it's, look at this dramatic lighting. Without the fill light over here, boy, this feels like I should be smoking a cigar and telling you who to assassinate. Okay. This is the Fangraphs report on Nick Becker. Super long levered infield prospect with extreme uphill swing. Already pretty strong for his age, but has room for immense strength as he matures. If Becker can shorten up as he gets stronger, we might really have something here. But as of now, his swing is terrifyingly long. Some of that is lever length. This is a 6'4" shortstop, and some is swing path. Geared for launch, bottom hand dominant, rotates well through contact. Unlike a lot of longer lever hitters, there isn't an obvious hole in Becker's swing. Most of his whiffs come off the plate. Legit shot to stay at shortstop despite his size, bends well, has impressive lateral agility, often makes the field look small, throwing stroke is a little odd, but I have no documented issues with accuracy. Might move off shortstop due to sheer size at maturity, but talent-wise, he's a fit there. Power-hitting shortstop prospect with hit tool risk due to swing style. So this is what I wanted to get at, what I was trying to convey in previous weeks, which is that don't worry about these guys that are shortstops. Just don't worry about it, because their shortstops can move everywhere. Shortstops can move to very often can move to center field. And I missed a couple of very obvious examples, by the way. O'Neal Cruz, who we saw in the home run derby against Cal Raleigh today, which we'll talk about in a moment. He's a former shortstop. Fernando Tatis Jr. is a former shortstop. Not that he's beloved in Seattle, but Jose Altuve is playing left field now. Late in his career playing left field. These dudes can move. They can move off of that position. So don't get hung up on the fact that the Mariners have a bunch of shortstop prospects, because Nick Becker may stay a shortstop prospect, or a bunch of these dudes that are shortstop prospects in the system may not stick a shortstop. Nick Becker, according to Fangraphs, present 20 hit tool, future 40 hit tool. 50 is average, if you remember. And I want to. Oh, here, let me get this. We'll get Harrison Crow, my buddy, says, bro, he's 6'4". I said that in when I was reading the scouting report, and I'm aware of that. And he said Ty Pete is a center fielder. This is actually, Ty Pete was a first round pick a couple years ago, And he was in a couple days ago or last week. I talked about the guys in the Mariners organization who've made the switch, not including, by the way, Rafael Soriano, who was a starter and a closer for the Mariners at different points, who was came up as a shortstop, came through the system as a shortstop. Never made it to the majors as a shortstop, but did play some shortstop in the minors. So they have him as a 55 pitch selection, 40 back control, game powers 25-50, so 25 present, 50 future, raw power 40-55, speed 50-50, and fielding is 45 with a future value of 55. This is the kind of guy, I mean, toolsy high school shortstops. Draft as many of them as you can. We saw a ton of them go in the first round, and why not take one in the second round? You'll probably have to pay him over slot. That's the benefit of signing Kade Anderson to a below slot deal. Drew Brantley says Becker is really interesting. Big physical athlete that will likely stick at shortstop. He says shortstop in the next chat. Yeah, I agree. I think he's like very, very interesting. These are guys that the Mariners should be taking risks on. This is the perfect profile of a guy to take a risk on. 6'4", if he becomes a third baseman but he hits, who cares? I believe, what do they say? He does have a college commitment, but commitment to Virginia, and his brother plays at Virginia, so that's a little dicey. So then let's take a look at this guy, Griffin Hughes. We're gonna go with Hughes because I have not looked up a pronunciation guide. MLB.com has him ranked 169. The Mariners took him at 91. He's a 4-year. He's a college junior. Is this a guy? Is he? By the way, I love the Major League. I got to get myself a Rob Lowe Major League Baseball. Not all these guys have the Major League Baseball. The Major League Baseball logo hat, I love. So, very often, these are the kind of guys, the slot here is $851,000. If they draft a guy here that they can sign for $200,000, $300,000, whose expectation should be that he would have been drafted several rounds later, then you start to free up some room. Why that's the way it is, I still it still perplexes me a little bit why you wouldn't just draft the guy that you want to draft a couple rounds down, but whatever. I guess it's because you can maximize the talent. Another thing, brief commentary, because it's 9 o'clock at night, and or it's 9:45 at night, West Coast time, is I like the way baseball scouting values are conveyed, because I think when you look at like a guy that's ranked 169th versus a guy that's ranked 51st. So I want to look at these two guys, see if I can find Hughes on the, because I don't think that we don't have a future value. We don't have the 20 to 80 scale. Why it's 20 to 80, I don't know. I think that part's a little silly, but so on Fangraphs, Nick Becker is a 40 plus future value. So 50 is average, 45 slightly below average, 40 is like a full standard deviation below average, 40 plus is like in between a 40 and a 45. Can we find you Hughes? Hughes isn't even there. But what I was trying to get at, and we can change to this real quick. We're gonna share this Fangraphs tab instead. Is you see on this future value column on the right, there's one guy they have at a 55 future value. That's Ethan Holiday. And then they have all these guys. Make sure I'm not filtering by anything. What do they have? Why do I not see Kade Anderson on there? Am I going blind? If I spelled his name right, that would be helpful. Oh, it's because we're in this. Sorry. So, Ethan Holiday, 55 future value. Liam Doyle, who I'll admit I'm not super familiar with, a 55 future value. There's a clump of guys at 50, a clump of guys at 45 plus, and then a huge chunk of dudes at 45, and then the 40 pluses. The point is the difference between 169 and 69 is probably smaller than the difference between 69, ranked 69 and 30, and ranked 30 and 1. So how far they are in the rankings, it is a very distinct parabola of talent. There's an enormous drop off at the beginning of the draft, and then a lot of these guys, you're hoping that your franchise understands traits and that they can find some diamonds in the rough. The Mariners have been pretty good at that. I'm a little worried based on what StreamYard's saying that my internet is bad enough that it's going to be choppy. So I'm sorry if that's happening. Okay. Go back to the tracker. So I will say it stands out to me that all of the players, the Mariners drafted one high school player in the first 10 rounds. I mean, one high school player in the first 12 rounds. Aiden Torek says NS. And you see this here. This is the pick value is 0. That's because they contribute nothing to the pool. Aiden Torek. I think this is probably a typo for can we get some info on this fella? What's up with Aiden Torek? The MLB.com list doesn't have him ranked. He is okay, so he's playing at St. Mary's and then he's playing for the Portland Pickles? He is playing for the Portland Pickles. All right. Well, maybe I'll get a scouting report from owner of the Portland Pickles, John Ryan. Anyway, yeah, kind of. Now I'm like stuck. We're gonna look at Corbin Dickinson so he got drafted at 152, ranked 83rd, high school junior. This is the last guy that I would call like particularly compelling from my brief research. Dickinson ranked 246 in MLB Draft's pipeline, top 250 as a Kentucky high schooler. Blah 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 blah. He's an outfielder. He has plus raw power to all fields. Let's see if we can get a Corbin Dickerson scouting report on Fangraphs. That would be a little more exciting. So Corbin Dickerson they have him as a 20 present, 30 future hit tool, 45 pitch selection, 30 bat control, 30 to 30-45 game power, and a 55-60 raw power and a 60 speed 45-55 field. So it's interesting how the Mariners have tried to shy away from strikeouts. They've like really subordinated a lot of their efforts and their resources to get rid of strikeouts. And then like Corbin Dickerson's a guy who's got a strikeout profile. And so was Becker. Drew Brandley says Hugus is their Brian Wu, Logan's Evans pick of this draft. That'd be fantastic. I would love it if that's true. There's a bunch of college pitchers in there. Again, no team has a reputation for developing college pitchers like the Mariners do. I would say I want to move on to the Cal Raleigh stuff so I can go to bed at some point tonight. In general, if I'm the Mariners, I'd prefer to see them draft position players because they just, as I said in earlier weeks, it's their trading for and developing, drafting and developing, signing and developing their own position players is the only way to get offensive players to come here. And by the way, I'm going to do a podcast hopefully this week about the misconception and the underrating of the Mariners offense because I think people are just stuck in this like repetitive loop of saying the Mariners have a bad offense. But it's not really true. It kind of reminds me of when the Seahawks had Russell Wilson and people would say they had a bad offensive line, and there were years that they had a bad offensive line, But it's hard for me to say they have a bad offensive line when Marshawn Lynch is dominating, when they're one of the best run blocking teams in baseball. And yeah, Harrison Crow says their road WRC plus is third in Major League Baseball. Exactly. To me, their road stats are the most important. I responded to a tweet on a shared tweet on Instagram from the Marine Layer podcast. By the way, one of the best names in all of Mariners, or in the whole podcastosphere. But where they talked about how the Mariners are so much worse on the road than they are at home, and they're not. They're the same team, and they struggle to hit where it's hard to hit. This is like basically my exact comment on it, is they struggle to hit where it's hard to hit, and so do their opponents, T-Mobile Park, and where it's easier to hit, they have an easier time hitting, and so do their opponents. They have presently an average pitching staff. Last year they had a very good pitching staff that was incredibly historically healthy, but they're not as healthy this year. So let's move on from. We'll talk more draft stuff as the offseason approaches, and we start to talk about I will say one thing: Kade Anderson being drafted more so than Harry Ford, I think, being an obvious trade target, trade chip. And I do think it's possible that Harry Ford does get dealt, and that this draft is the reason why. But I think they're trading one or two of those starters in the offseason. Luis Castillo has kind of maintained his productivity, which is nice because he'll finally be eligible to be traded without the no trade clause, without waiving his no trade clause. And I think that though he's pitched pretty well at points, I think the wheels are falling off of Luis Castillo, frankly. And I don't want to have to be the team that's holding the bag when Luis Castillo finally craters. And I also think like the Mariners have the ability to plug Logan Evans in, and to plug Brian Wu in, and to plug Emerson Hancock in, and Kade Anderson in, and a variety of guys that I think that they should be trading from a position of strength to find a position that they just can't fill another way. Offensive players are not signing in Seattle, nor should they. So yeah, I guess who that's going to be, I almost feel like if I was Jerry Dipoto, I'd be like, hey, George Kirby, hey, Logan Gilbert, hey, Bryce Miller, offer them all extensions this offseason at something like what you'd expect from pre-arbitration or in arbitration, but pre-free agency players. And whoever takes it, great. And if somebody doesn't, that's the odd man out. Because I don't know that there's a better way. The Mariners are not, I don't think that anything's changing. And they can change the hitter's eye, by the way, and they can do a bunch of stuff to make the ballpark more neutral. And I do think that they should. But I think there's going to be, let's say they do that. Let's say they perfectly fix the hitter's eye this offseason. There's going to be a lag between when they fix the hitter's eye, the stats start to roll in, and agents and players start to trust those numbers. So that's not a single offseason panacea solution. So Cal Raleigh wins the home run derby, which was very exciting. I pulled my daughter, and I have been let's pull up the home run derby results. It's my daughter and I'm trying to get these kids to like sports. I have two daughters. One is just turned 2 and the other's about to turn 6. And I'm trying to convince them to like sports. And I've got my daughter in golf lessons. By the way, she's fucking smashing the ball right now. It's so cool to watch her. Like, I mean, this sounds like so stupid and elementary for a parent, but we like go out to the driving range, and every week she takes these like massive leaps and bounds improvements. And she's in classes and she's like learning from other people, but even just like she's absorbing the horrible coaching that I give her and making a lot out of it. So, we sat down, we've been watching Bob's Burgers, anytime my wife was out of the house for dinner with a friend, so anytime the wife's out, we watch a show that my wife hates. Typically, it's Bob's Burgers. Um, and so tonight it was bittersweet because she wanted the Mariners player to do well, but she also wanted to watch Bob's Burgers, and we were watching Cal Raleigh, and she's like kind of rooting against him, but also knows that every round that he extends means an episode of Bob's Burgers that she can't watch. And I will say a couple things of Cal Raleigh. I think it's interesting. I'll be curious if anyone cares enough to speculate. So first off, in the first round, Brent Rooker and Cal Raleigh, they tie in total home runs. And then the tiebreaker is the longest home run, except for they were the longest. They were tied with their longest home runs, the exact number. So the tiebreaker ends up being by like an inch, which, you know, StatCast, I believe in StatCast stuff. An inch is a pretty narrow margin of error. So I don't know what the answer is. My preference certainly would have been for them to do some kind of a hit-off tiebreaker, but that's not the rules as of now. I'm sure they'll be fixed, and nobody's going to care, and the situation won't come up for a long time that it even matters, but small amount of controversy and an exhibition that nobody really cares about. Though there are some money differences. And then also, when Junior Caminero was batting and he hits the line drive and the kid robs him of a home run, which is such a Bartman-esque fuck up, because it's like who among us has not imagined themselves making a game-saving catch over a fence? I never had the vertical leap to do it. By the way, this kid didn't really either. But he's in a major league ballpark and robs a home run. There's only one setting, really, maybe two settings, where that's a bad thing. One is when it screws over your favorite team in the playoffs, like Steve Bartman. I know that wasn't a home run, but it was a foul ball. But like making a catch that interferes with the game, and in the home run derby. And I was watching the StatCast broadcast. I'm sure most people were not, but it took a while for them to realize that they had counted the home run. And then there was not really I feel like the tension from that didn't really go away. And it's, good that Cal Raleigh won it decisively without that being part of it. But I'm always worried. Like, hearing that Julio isn't going to participate in the All-Star game, it doesn't bother me one bit. The risk of injury, the risk of fatigue, I'm fine with him staying home and not participating in the All-Star game. I understand people's frustration with him even being in it. I don't really get it. I don't see why people are so bent out of shape about it, but it at least alleviates a little bit of that foolishness. All that being said, I'm hoping that Cal Raleigh's swing isn't permanently fucked, as there's been anecdotes about people in previous years by this. But also, they said on the StatCast broadcast, I don't know if they said it on the regular one, and I didn't realize it was this severe. The Cal Raleigh hasn't had a non-home run hit since June 29th. What swing could he fuck up hitting home runs? He's exclusively hitting home runs right now. What swing could he fuck up? Outside of that, all feel good stuff. Watching O'Neal Cruz hit these amazing, just 110 plus exit velocity home runs was cool. I actually think that Byron Buxton is a good model for what you might hope that Julio turns into. Because Buxton, it's easy to just see Buxton now at 31 and go like, well, this guy like lived up to his potential. But there were points early in his career, and I'm pulling up his stats right now. Buxton was, well, let's get him on Fangraphs. I keep pulling him up on reference, but let's get you on. By the way, Byron Buxton hitting in Atlanta, where he's from, pretty cool. So yeah, Byron Buxton early in his career, his first 3 years in the bigs, never had he was great defensively, but never had a 100 plus WRC plus. Spent some time injured in 2018 at age 24, and then has like a pretty good year and a pretty good year. And then in 2021, he finally really turns it on in only 61 games. He has 19 home runs, continues to play excellent defense. And in 61 games is worth 4.1 wins above replacement. And this year, he's already, in 78 games, worth 4.0 wins above replacement. One thing about Byron Buxton, he's been injured a lot. He's missed. Last year was the first year he's played 100 games since 2017. God damn. But when he's on the field, he's one of the best defenders in baseball, one of the most productive players in baseball. And outside of the injuries, I actually think Buxton, I think we really underappreciate how good of a defender Julio is, frankly. He says, Harrison Crow says only healthy. Yeah, exactly. That's hopefully that's the. Anyway, pretty cool to see the Raleigh family, Cal Raleigh's dad pitching, his brother catching. Pretty cool, fun stuff. Like I said, the video of him as a kid saying he's going to be the home run derby champ, pretty amazing. And I got to imagine he's like the older of the people who just had their whole lives filmed. My kids are going to have every single event they did filmed. We're going to have video. That's why I'm like stoked to have these videos. A couple of things with my daughter. I'm going to end this talking about my daughter's golf. Is that what the Seattle sports fan base wants to talk about? I'll talk about it briefly. Being able to film her golf swing and show her, you're doing this thing where you're like lifting your front foot up. You don't normally do that. Here's video proof. Amazing. It's so cool. We're going to have so much cool video of these players as kids. That's going to be so fun as time goes on. That's not going to be like some relative has to pull it out of a crate that's in an attic somewhere. It's going to be on everyone's cloud drive. It's pretty cool. All right. I have a couple things to talk about. I still have a Cal Raleigh topic that I'm sitting on. It keeps changing as he keeps playing better. And I have some thoughts on what to talk about while the Mariners are on the All-Star break. I don't give a shit about the All-Star game. I suspect neither do you, but I'm not even going to watch it. I don't think I've watched a full All-Star game since it was in Seattle in 2001. So, all right. Thank you. By the way, I put my stand-up comedy specials on Facebook and YouTube now. Oh, no, Facebook and Twitter now. It's been on YouTube. Do Not Shake. It's July 11th. Was 1 year since I'd released it, and in honor of that, because everybody cares, obviously, I posted it on Twitter and Twitter/X and on Facebook. So go check it out. Do Not Shake. Thank you guys for listening. Bye.